I'm audible to everyone. Welcome to Raj Malhotra IAS. Welcome to a daily Hindu newspaper analysis. I hope I am audible to everyone. Okay. Audible to everyone. Right. Don't worry, Puneetdin, हम आगे हैं. Okay, right. So Monday there was no newspaper for us because there is a holiday after Makar Sankranti and Pongal. So we are back again with a daily Hindu newspaper analysis. Let's say start beginning our exercise for today, right? Okay. The major, if we talk about, let's say the major news that is there right now today is, okay, thank you Chetu for your, let's say, wonderful support, is the exports dropped by 12.2% in a year on a slow demand. Now one thing we have to understand that there has been constant saying that India's exports over the time period would continue to go down. India's exports would continue to go down, and if we compare December 2022 exports with 2021, then we could see there have been a huge, let's say, drop of 12.2%. There have been a huge drop of 12.2%. That is a very, very big drop. Now, let's say when we are calculating inflation as well, let's say when we are comparing December month of 2022 with December month of 2021, this is nothing but base effect. This is nothing but base effect. So one thing we have to understand over here, that our exports have dropped by 12.2%, and one of the thing we can attribute to this, our exports going down, could be due to the overall situation of the global economy. It could be attributed to the overall situation of global economy, which is slowing down. As a result, our demand for goods are not that much there as it used to be. So as a result, our exports are going a little bit down. That is a huge worrisome factor. This is a huge worrisome factor. Why? Because it can lead to trade deficit. One thing we have to understand, that this can lead to trade deficit. So in order to make sure that our trade deficit is not there, we have to make sure somehow we have to encourage our exports, and then we have to increase the exports. So this is the thing that we have to understand in this particular major news section of today, right? So this was very important, that exports dropped by 12.2% in a year on a slow demand. The one thing you have to understand over here, that they have mentioned as well, that it is due to the slow demand. It is due to the slow demand. ठीक है जी? Okay. Moving to the next part, I think everyone is aware of this particular news, a very, very tragic incident. Just we need to have a know about it, that Nepal plane crash, black box recovered from accident site. So it was a very, very, we could say, a bad tragedy that has happened in this particular our area of Nepal, and we are, let's say, deeply regret the loss of the people that have suffered or are not able to, let's say, or have not been able to, we could say, recover from this particular loss of their dear ones, right? So this is a very bad news that has come, that Nepal plane crash, black box recovered from accident site, right? Okay. Now I think everyone was aware that we have been constantly discussing that Election Commission of India has come up with RVM, a prototype, that is remote voting machines. Hanji. How many of you are aware of this news? Please type yes, so that I am able to know as well how many of you are deeply, let's say, understanding this thing and are continuously watching our sessions, right? Okay. I think everyone is aware of this particular fact, right? Okay, we have this particular election commission had a prototype of remote voting machines, and on this particular 15th and 16th they had basically invited all the parties to have a look at this particular remote voting machine. Now this RVM is basically for the migrant workers. because they are not able to vote when they are gone for work away from their home constituency. So this particularly remote voting machine was designed for these type of migrant workers only, who are not staying in their home constituencies, are away from their home constituencies, and so as to increase the overall, let's say, voter turnout ratio in the elections. This was the logic behind Election Commission of India, let's say, had a prototype of remote voting machines. But yes, very good, Subin Saxena, it can cater up to 72 constituencies, very nice. But the problem here that the opposition is staging is that they are saying that already we have so many doubts related to this electronic voting machines. So how can it be full soundproof, or there could be no discrepancies in this remote voting machines? So as a result, they have all staged a boycott against this particular RVM prototype that we need to know. It is one of the things that would be debated whether it would come in the future or not, but right now there is a lot of debate on this remote voting machines. I hope everyone is aware of this particular thing, right? तो ये important news थी हमारे आज के front page की that you need to understand. Okay जी, चलिए next part पे चलते. There is nothing important on the states page or on the south page, nothing that much important. Now we have the editorials. Let's try to understand the first editorials, that is, leading from the front, India must amplify views of the global south as president of the G20 summit. Now one thing we have to understand, that recently India hosted this global south summit. I think everyone is aware of this, and we discussed it in our last session as well. Global South Summit. This India hosted it. Now it is very, very important because group of two. No, this is basically, we are saying Global South. These are basically the developing countries. These are basically the developing countries whose conference was hosted, or the summit was hosted by India. Now one thing we have to understand, that these are the very, we could say, developing countries or the least developed countries who do not have much say in the world politics, and we know that there are few areas where certain countries have a very much a large amount of share of, let's say, justifying their things, like G7 and United Nations Security Council. Now India has a very, very good chance, let's say, if we talk about, as it is a president of G20 as well, plus India hosted this Global South Summit as well. Now India has tried to raise the, let's say, the worrisome factors or the opinions of this Global South as well, and is trying to take a very different stance from whatever it has taken in the past, because this is the time India has also understood that they need to make sure that they had to take leverage of their position, considering the amount of opportunity that is there in the developing countries or in the global south countries. So as a result, India has strongly voiced its opinion in this global south summit that there are things that needs to be done by the global north, like pay for climate change, developing infrastructure in developing countries, and lastly, pay for renewable energy projects in developing countries. Now this is the position that India wants to take leverage of, and is trying to make sure that more and more people are invested into this thing. More and more people are invested into this thing, so that this global south could achieve their aspirations. And one thing Modi ji has also said, that this is the era or the decade of this global south countries, or this a lot of opportunity that is there in regard to these developing countries. So we have to see in future what lies ahead for the next day, another conferences, organizations that would take place. But India has rightly raised its voice, gone away from the tradition, has become the voice of the global south as well, and along with it is the president of G20 as well. So it has lot of, let's say, opportunities, and it has to be seen how global north or the developed countries are able to fulfill the demands of the global south countries. So this is the theme of this particular editorial, that is leading from front. India must amplify views of global south. They are saying India has to do one thing, it has to amplify views of the global south. because he is now the India is also the president of G20 summit as well, right? So this was the basic theme of this article. Just you need to know the context regarding which this particular editorial has been discussed, right? Chaliye, moving to the next part. Now this is the same address that we discussed in the Saturday's editorial. I think everyone remember article 87 and article 176, and these are nothing but reference to Tamil Nadu governor walking out of the assembly, and as a result there were two major things that we discussed, article 87 and article 176. Article 87 is related to president addressing the joint assembly of the parliament at the commencement of the each year, and this is governor addressing state assemblies commencing each year. Now this is the thing that is very mandatory, and it is given in the constitution. Now the next thing that it was basically regarding the convention, that whether it is appropriate for the governor to omit certain speeches or certain portions of the speeches. And one thing that this article discussed is basically related to, we have to make sure that this governor is functioning with the proper aid and advice of Council of Ministers. And the second thing that we have to understand, that governor's role shall be to facilitate the working of the state government. It shall be to facilitate the working of the state government, and one recommendation is there that the governor shall be appointed after the consultation with the Council of Ministers headed by Chief Minister, so that there is smooth functioning of the government. So that there is smooth functioning of the government. And this address of the governor is very important, because it tries to lay down the executive programs and the legislative laws of the state government. So the people is aware, so the ministers are aware, so that the members are aware what is being done by the state. So this presidential or this governor address is very important. It's not just any address, it has to be done with proper traditions and proper conventions. This is the basic theme of this particular editorial, and we would see in the coming days a lot of editorial again on this particular thing. Why? Because this issue has become a lot of, we could say, a hot topic among the editorial part, right? Chaliye, moving to the next part. Now one thing we have to understand, recently Union Cabinet gave 2600 crore for investing in digital infrastructure, right, for the digital payments. I hope everyone remembers this part. This was, let's say, Friday or Saturday's front page news. This was Friday's or Saturday's front page news, where Union Cabinet has approved certain amount for digital transactions, because in our country digital transactions has increased, and in urban and metro cities. So as a result, this Union Cabinet has decided to invest 2600 crore. As more and more people are, let's say, venturing into this digital payments, one thing we have to make sure that these digital payments are safe and secure from cyber threats. These are safe and secure from cyber threats. So lot needs to be put into it, and a lot of money has to be put into this R&D infrastructure in relation to prevention of cyber attacks, let's say, if it could come from this particular usage of digital transactions. So as a result, this editorial is related to, while promoting digital payments, care is needed to guard against cyber threats. Nothing more than that, just you have to remember this particular फैक्ट, राइट? तो ये बेसिक चीज है जो आपको पता होना चाहिए कि अभी यूनियन कैबिनेट ने रिसेंटली अप्रूव करी है कुछ सर्टेन अमाउंट फॉर बेसिकली डिजिटल ट्रांजैक्शंस जो रुपए कार्ड से हो रही हैं, एंड बेसिकली दैट आर हैपनिंग थ्रू यूपीआई. आई थिंक एवरीवन नोज द फुल फॉर्म ऑफ यूपीआई. कैन एनीवन राइट इन द कमेंट बॉक्स so that everyone is able to understand what is the full form of UPI, right? Quickly write down in the comment box. Okay, moving to the next part. Now again the editorials are now coming very similar, like we have this balance fiscal consolidation with growth. One thing we have to understand, now this year coming budget, it would be announced after, we could say, we have bring or certain there is a normalcy that has come down after COVID. अब कोविड के बाद कुछ सिचुएशंस अच्छी होने लग गई हैं, सिचुएशंस हैव बिकम अ लिटिल बिट बेटर आफ्टर कोविड एंड वी हैव रिसीव्ड और come to a normalcy stage. Now this is the time we have to make sure that we go for our growth as well. That has little bit we could say downslided. Along with it, we have to maintain the fiscal deficit that over the 3 years has increased by 3 times what we intended. So this editorial is basically about controlling fiscal deficit along with pushing for growth. Now, one thing you have to understand, when I talk about fiscal deficit, let's say I am talking about expenditure. What is deficit? Expenditure minus income of the government. This is fiscal deficit. I hope everyone agrees with me. What is the definition of fiscal deficit? It is the expenditure minus the income of the government. Let's say expenditure can be in the form of capital expenditure plus revenue expenditure. Now you tell me guys, which one is more fruitful? Capital or revenue for the growth part? Quickly write down in the comment box. Which one is more fruitful if we have to aim for the growth? Quickly write. Whether it shall be the capital expenditure or it shall be the revenue expenditure. Yes, very good. It has to be the capital expenditure that will initiate the growth of the country. So one thing this article wants to say, yes, revenue expenditure तो हमें करना ही है. We have to spend on revenue expenditure. But one thing we have to make sure, if we have to drive the growth, keep the fiscal consolidation path and has to have the expenditure, then that expenditure shall be in the form of capital expenditure, where we are spending on roads, infrastructure, buildings. That thing has to be taken more care of rather than revenue expenditure, if we have to make sure that we as a country are growing as well, plus pushing on the path of fiscal consolidation. Clear? So this is the basic theme of this particular editorial. There are a lot of numbers given, stats given, that are not much of use to us. We just need to know the crux of this particular editorial. Chaliye, moving to the next part. Now again, this thing we already discussed. The Delhi CM LG stalemate continues. Now one thing I would try to make sure that I give you the basic points that are there about the tussle that is going on between Delhi LG Lieutenant Governor and Delhi CM. Now let's try to see, in that upcoming mayor elections, let's say Lieutenant Governor of Delhi appointed certain councillor to preside over the polls. I will not try to name the political party. I think everyone is, let's say, very prudent and wise, would be able to understand, right? हाँ जी, उन्होंने बता भी दिया. राजेंद्र जी बहुत तेज है हमारे. Now Delhi CM says that LG bypassed the tradition. Now the tradition is to appoint the senior councillor to preside over the poll. One thing that is of issue that is being coming out from this particular Delhi Lieutenant Governor and Delhi CM. One thing they are saying, that why basically this person was given the authority to preside over the polls by passing the senior councillor. Again, another thing is, Delhi LG and the Delhi CM are not giving each other the time. They have to meet every Friday, but they are not meeting regularly. That is also becoming a point of concern if we talk about the functioning of the government. So one thing is, they are not giving time to each other. मान लो डेट पे नहीं जा रहे हैं. So as a result, both of them are having a tussle. And the third thing we have to understand, that there was a proposal that was being sent by Delhi CM to Delhi Lieutenant Governor, so that they are able to send their teachers for training abroad. Teachers for training abroad. But this proposal was not passed by Lieutenant Governor, but was sent again back to Delhi CM in order to check the cost benefit analysis. To check the cost benefit analysis. As a result, one thing we are able to understand from this whole crux of this situation, that they are not on the same page, LG and the Delhi CM. But one thing that every time that there is a tussle that goes on, that one we have to understand that LG has the power to legislate, let's say, on the reserved subjects only. But CM is saying that he is basically making interference in the transferred subjects and making sure that work is being done by the counselors or the bureaucrats by bypassing the Delhi CM. Because Delhi CM says they do not have the power, LG do not have the power to make laws on the transferred subjects. Reserved subjects are public order, police and land. These are the basic on which LG can make legislate, but he cannot legislate on the transferred subjects. So there is the whole situation of who is having the power, on what subjects one could make laws between LG and the CM. Both are saying that they are misusing their power and are not functioning with according to the constitutional provisions. As a result, there is a whole situation of tussle that is going on between Delhi LG as well and Delhi CM as well. Same as we could see, there is a tussle going on between Tamil Nadu governor and the CM. I hope this point is clear to you guys. Okay. Okay, chaliye. Moving to the next part. So this was all about this basically things that are happening between Delhi CM and the LG governor. Next, coming to our news page, we have already discussed this thing. Okay. Now, one thing that has now become a major debate is going to become a major debate, that our law minister, let's say, has sent a certain recommendations in order to reform the collegium system. They are saying, let's say in Supreme Court collegium and in High Court collegium, there shall be one government nominee. There shall be one government nominee. Now, this is, we could say, one thing that it is the, let's say, against the independence of judiciary in the appointment of judges. As a result, it is against the basic structure, but this is just, it is a recommendation that has been sent in order to reform the collegium system. One thing you have to understand, it is nothing but a version of NJAC only, that is National Judicial Appointment Commission. We have to see further what happens in this regard, but there is nothing that this is against the principles of independence of judiciary, and we have to see what would be done in the future thing regarding to this particular thing. Because yes, reforms are necessary in the collegium, but whether executive shall be a part of the collegium, we have to see. Whether executive shall be a part of the collegium, we have to see, right? So हमें देखना पड़ेगा कि एक्चुअली में क्या होता है या नहीं होता है, but it is against certain principles that are given in our constitution. चलिए, moving to the next part. I think everyone is aware of the thing over Joshimath subsidence, right? Now, this is a basic fact that you need to know, that there is going to be a mission that is going to go on Venus, that is our second planet of our solar system. The name of the mission would be Shukrayaan 1, but initially it was planned much earlier, but the date has been pushed back to 2031. Just you have to understand this particular thing related to Venus, that this is our particular mission, that is Shukrayaan, and it is going to launch to, let's say, 2031. Chaliye, moving to the next part. Okay, nothing much more important in the world page. Again, same issues going on from Ukraine, Russia. We have already discussed that particular thing. Okay. Okay. So guys, this is it for today. We are done with our analysis. If you have any doubt relation to anything, you can ask me. I would be happy to solve your doubts. One thing you have to understand, that there are certain trends going in the newspapers that we have to understand, right? This is a very interesting thing that we have to understand. Let's try to sum it up. Let's say one issue is related to Delhi LG and CM. One issue is Governor of Tamil Nadu versus CM of Tamil Nadu. One is between judiciary versus executive. These are the trends I am saying that is coming regularly in the newspapers, and you need to be aware of these situations so that you are able to build your analysis on these particular topics. These are the three major things on which our editorials and news are focusing on. If I talk about, let's say, science and tech thing, then we have this artificial intelligence where lot of news are coming related to chat GPT and deepfakes. And then again, one thing that is very, very important for us guys to understand, that there would be news always on inflation, trade deficits and fiscal deficit. Right now, these are the most important things that are there in the newspaper, and you need to be aware of this particular thing, along with one new cruise that has been started from Varanasi and would go to Dibrugarh, that is MV Ganga Vilas. Thank you so much, guys. We will see each other tomorrow 9 a.m. with let's say tomorrow's newspaper analysis. Till that time, thank you, take care, bye bye.